I'm Will Hanson and welcome to the Experts in the Room podcast, brought to you by Extreme Push. In this series, we chat to some of the leading minds working in the customer experience, retention and data space in some of the most competitive and fastest growing industries in the world. In this episode, The Value of Brand Stories, I spoke with Liam Major, Head of Brand and Creative at Tactus Group. Tactus Group is one of the UK's best technology brands that builds and sells PCs and gaming hardware through a number of different brands, Chillblast and Box being the two that we touch on today. Liam goes deep on the centrality of value in the niche and competitive D2C market of PCs, the need for strong brand stories, and the centricity of customer experience to build successful retail businesses. I enjoyed this one. I know you guys will too. Welcome to Experts in the Room, the podcast where we talk to experts, and I'm very happy to be joined by one of the best in his field, Liam Major, Head of Brand and Creative at Tactus Group, one of the premier gaming companies, I think is probably the best way to describe it in the UK, former Head of Marketing of Chillblast, who, if you are chasing a custom PC for gaming or into that space, which I very much am and very much looking forward to talking about some of that today, you need to be getting in contact with because they're amazing. But anyway, Liam, welcome to the podcast. Awesome to have you involved. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Today, I'd love to just kind of get a really good understanding from your perspective as someone that's kind of moved up the rungs within marketing to being, as we talk, a head of brand and creative with a group like Tactus, about how your career has kind of progressed, but also to get into the nuts and bolts of some of the things that you've done, particularly in and around e-commerce with guys like Chillblast, to kind of kick that off. But maybe a little bit of a kind of 2-minute intro from Liam would be really good way to kind of kick this off, and what you're doing at the moment, and maybe an intro to Tactus and Chillblast as well would be handy.
Yeah, I try and fill 2 minutes. So I started at Chillblast about 4.5 years ago now as their head of marketing. Chillblast, relatively small company in the grand scheme of things, small team, small office, but quite big kind of aspirations in terms of what we wanted to do, right? So as a company, if you're not aware, we produce custom PCs, and that is 80% of the time for gamers, but 20% of the time it's other things like video editors, businesses, etc., things like that. So and a big market really to do that. And then about a year ago or so, Chillblast was acquired by a company called Tactus, who also own a number of other kind of gaming and tech related companies, predominantly a company called Box and a company called CCL, both kind of technology retailers or e-tailers. So I started as head of marketing at Chillblast, and then after the acquisition, when I moved to Tactus, I then moved to become head of brand and creative. So no longer kind of handling all of the marketing, but more kind of handling specifically brand-based marketing, brand messaging, brand just general branding, as well as creative. So obviously managing the studio, managing kind of what our team's creative output is, and just generally kind of pioneering that, or at least kind of advocating for a creative approach to everything we do, right?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, and a lot of the areas that we talk about on the show so far with many of our guests has probably been more on the retention and kind of CRM side of the house, which is where Extreme Push obviously firmly sits. So looking at a brand and creative strategy and how that plays into that kind of customer experience, I think is something that we'd love to talk about today. Okay. How have you found moving from, to an overarching role that's with multiple kind of D2C brands that are sitting under one umbrella? Like, has that been a challenge for you to kind of, get involved or keep that branding aligned with a big group like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I liken it to like working agency side again. Yeah. It is that kind of feeling of going, which brand am I on today, and having to change gear and really go for it in just kind of the different direction. It's I do generally approach it in an agency fashion. Try to run, the team like an agency, managing time, kind of almost assigning a bit of budget to time, so that you can kind of just keep that all aligned and make sure that each brand is either getting a good kind of mind share from everyone, or making sure that we're not spending super amounts like all day every day on a brand that isn't bringing in that level of revenue for the company. But it's 100% difficult. It really is. Probably one of the more tricky things is getting, from a brand point of view, getting the group that works kind of like homogenously across all of them to visualize each company as though it were its own company, right? And to treat it as though it was its own company. Only half an hour ago, I got off a call, in terms of how we do a certain promotion whilst speaking about the brand. I was using the analogous of kind of like, if you had I don't know, Ford and Volkswagen would be livid if they were on the same banner at the same time, shared product. And it's kind of that kind of mindset. But in our head, we think it's all right because, it's our company, so we can do it.
It's under one group,
So, to answer your question, it's incredibly difficult. It's one of the biggest challenges,
I imagine hard for you personally to compartmentalize each brand. Like when you're a marketing manager focused on your single brand, in particularly that D2C space and that e-commerce space, you can really double down and become an expert within that brand and what's working from a strategic point of view, and then a tactical point of view for conversion and stuff as well.
We definitely get in the position. I still make this mistake of you find your home, right? And for me, that's Chill Blast, because I spent so long doing it. And sometimes you do just have to pull yourself out of it and go, hang on, this is not all I think about. And there's definitely, we all know what companies are like, right? Everybody wears multiple hats, no matter how defined you want your role to be. Everybody's got multiple hats. And so you kind of, despite the fact that you're being pulled into this new role, you still end up wearing those hats, and people come to you for different things. So,
I think it's really, really interesting. And I think it's a rather unique play in that you've got a couple of really niche brands that are doing some really good work there, and Chill Blast is probably the place that we'll spend some time with today, talking about that, and how important getting the brand right, particularly in that high-end luxury market, is probably what I would call gaming PCs and high-performance PCs, and how that either engenders kind of really good community within it, but also then can really generate revenue for maybe a smaller to medium-sized business that's competing with, you're going up against everyone that's selling PCs across the UK, Amazon, anyone that's doing it. So Argos, whoever, Harvey Norman here in Ireland, and as an Aussie would be always the example I'd go back to. And then independent retailers that are actually building something and kind of working from the ground up, I think either have a hindrance or a really special place to play in that community. So how do you think about that from a marketing perspective, to go out and actually generate revenue, I guess, is probably the most important thing?
Yeah, so we have I guess a fundamental truth in, if we're talking purely Chill Blast, and we're talking custom PCs, we have a fundamental truth within the company, which is it's a brutal truth, to be honest, is that what we do as what is delivered to your door is not that much above and beyond what you could do yourself, right? We take parts that are for the most part off the shelf, and we put them together. We do it really well. We do it, we've got years and years and years of experience and the tools at hand, and there's all of that, but that's ultimately, I guess, not what we're selling. Put it that way, because as I said, anybody could do it. You could ask, if you've got a little cousin or something that's interested in that thing, they are more than capable of doing this kind of thing. But what they can't do, which is what Chill Blast has always done incredibly well, is have a company behind it, right? Is have a company that will have your back in any situation. That's why we shout about our warranty so much, because that your little cousin that builds it isn't going to be there if it breaks, and isn't going to be able to have the reputation and the relationships with manufacturers to be able to solve that problem, and to be able to, I don't know, ship you a replacement PC so that you've got one there to continue working on whilst you return the other one. Things like this. That's ultimately where our bread and butter of revenue making is, because that's what that's what ultimately we have to sell, because that's the value. So we back that up with, warranty, customer service, things like lifetime tech support, and just generally making it a really, really easy experience for customers. Like, I'm fairly tech savvy, but even now, just growing older and not having time to kind of like keep my head into it all the time, even I look at a list of components occasionally and go, I don't know if this is good. Like, I just don't know. New games coming out or a new bit of software, and I'm like, I actually don't know if what I've got is going to be able to run it and stuff. And so what we do is we have the team that does live and breathe it. It's their job to stay on top of it. And so if you ask them, I've got X number of pounds and I want to spend it on a PC, and I'm looking to, do Photoshop, I'm looking to do Illustrator, I'm looking to, write content or do word processing, massive spreadsheets, whatever it happens to be. Yeah. The team is there that goes, well, I know exactly what you need, and I know, and in most of the cases, it's like, well, you don't need to spend, X number of pounds, you actually need to spend less. You don't need that. And that's really nice to have a company that I think does that for a lot of people.
And I imagine playing in that niche as well, particularly where people are looking for solid advice, maybe if they're entering the gaming industry for the first time, for instance, and they're a young person or whatever it might be, and they haven't got much experience with it, or even an older person entering it, picking up a PC title for the first time.
Yeah.
That value of what you're bringing is going to be so much better than going into an electronics shop on the high street that's generic, that might not offer that knowledge and that expertise. And are you finding that people are willing to pay for that? And how are you, and sorry, that's probably leading you to another question. Lots of questions. This is what we do. How are you pairing that across the whole group now, where you might have your e-tailer brand of box that maybe isn't as necessarily niche and as focused on that value sell, but has its own different type of value sell? Are you cross-pollinating that type of ethos, or are you looking at each one individually, like you said earlier?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few ways we tackle it, right? We've got we try and keep Chill Blast specifically as its own discrete brand, right? We treat it as though we treat it the same when it comes to like Box or CCL or any of our e-tailers. We try to treat Chill Blast the same as Box or CCL would treat any other kind of massive brand, right? That's good for our kind of, or rather good for Chill Blast kind of business, as well as just kind of processes and making sure everything's kind of clear. So, but there's obviously naturally kind of like this cross-pollination of ideas and ethoses. It's just because we have an overarching group and over which everybody is employed by, and we kind of want that. We want everybody in that room to be singing from the same hymn sheet, right? So we want quality, we want excellent customer service, we want those kind of things. But in the same breath, we try and keep Chill Blast, discreet. We try and keep it so that Chill Blast has very clear brand values, and we try and bring that to everything that we do. And Box and CCL and some of the other companies that we own, they have their own discrete values, and they might even occasionally butt heads, right? They might, and I think that's fine. That's absolutely fine, because it would be naive to think otherwise, right? It would be in the same way that Box's values might not always aligned with a different brand, say, without wanting to call out anyone specifically because this isn't true, but like Samsung or Seagate or Ford, Volkswagen. Should have gone with something that wasn't that we.
No, that's all right. Direct competitors are fine. Yes. We do that a lot here. And like, are you having to? I don't know if this falls within the remit of your role, but I imagine it touches on it. Do you have to balance different teams within the business from like a customer service perspective and the way that that's approached? I imagine your customer service level in a place like Chill Blast is going to be a little different to an e-tailer's customer service levels.
Yeah, so we've got, and this is why I always describe my role as just like sticking my oar in people's business, right? I think I've spoken to you twice when I've said it 3 times.
I think that actually could be, I think, the title of the podcast. Sticking my oar in, I think, is where it's going to land for us.
Because it is that kind of, in brand, it is kind of basically every touch point from a customer, and then in some ways every touch point from an employee as well, because there's internal brand to think about. So yes, absolutely. So I'm frequently in conversation conversations with customer service in terms of specifically when it comes to Chill Blast, because the prerogative is to empower customer service and to give them, give them the tools and the ability to kind of this, and this is part of our brand ethos, is, to create amazing stories, right? Is to find those conversations that we can talk about and do some PR around them. So we empower them to just go kind of, great, what do you want to do? Is it someone's birthday? Let's give them a free gift in their PC. Like let's have those fun things to do, as well as obviously we've got to, I've got to speak to production on a daily basis and make sure that they, that quality assurance is there, or maybe we want to change the packaging. We've got to, I've got to work with them in terms of how it gets done, all the way through to like merchandising and buying and things like that, and working out whether there are products we want to sell. What's the ethos behind it? Are we selling this product just because it's cheap? We don't want to do that. We want to sell a product because we're behind it. We've tested it. We've worked and that's the kind of, so that is kind of why I do lead it with, sticking my oar in everyone's business, because it does really feel like that on a day to day. But somebody has to make sure that everything you do is within that line. Otherwise you kind of fall over and you fall towards, everybody's got, without wanting to say it, everybody's got their own kind of agenda, right, within their role, and usually it's to do a great job, but sometimes that might lead you off the path of what the business should be standing for.
I like that point about where your role has probably changed to be more aligned and attuned to that overall business goal as well. And I think brands that get full buy-in across their departments and up and down the kind of value chain within their own organizations obviously tend to have the better success. You've actually pivoted there nicely, and I can't help myself but get into the weeds of some of this now. You talk about creating these brand stories and, bringing these conversations to life in these communities, and that's all nice and it's all buzzwordy. Let's talk about the practicalities of bringing that to life in a D2C world. What type of tools are you looking at, and what type of channels maybe is a good place to start that you think are indispensable, particularly in your niche, in what you're doing at the moment? And I'm sure that's probably ever evolving, but is everything for you getting pounded into display ads and Facebook, or is it a mix of that with organic stuff and word of mouth? How are you guys going about your marketing spend?
So taking that back a step is that what we are looking at kind of acquisition versus just retention is PC sales. There's not a quick turnaround, right?
No.
How frequently do you buy a PC? We've got the data off the top of my head. I think it's on average, 6.5 years as people buy a PC, and that's difficult, right? How do you increase average order value? How do you increase lifetime value from somebody that isn't going to buy again for 6.5 years?
If you were Apple, you'd probably just change the port type or the
exactly,
or how to plug your headphones in or something.
You make something proprietary and you just kind of go, and that's really difficult, and that's why we lean a lot on things like that word of mouth and things like that creating excellent customer stories to try and build a little bit of kind of relevancy in your audience in terms of sharing it with their word of mouth. So a lot of it is kind of that awareness phase, kind of let's make it so that everybody that we sell to is evangelizing our business to their friends, their family, because that's kind of a lot of the time what we can really rely on. And you do a really good job there, and we hope that they are gonna, if they ever get a question and say, I'm looking at buying a PC, what would you recommend? That Chill Blast is the brand that they go to. So there's a lot of tools on top of that in terms of managing that, right? We try to have a fairly robust kind of model for working out where an order came from, and it's showing that most of the time that's word of mouth, right? I heard of it through somebody, but that's never going to be, whether that's first touch or whether it's just kind of cumulative for everything. It could quite easily come through paid or come through some kind of organic. So we do have a really broad range of what we try to do. So whilst we rely a lot on that word of mouth, ultimately there's a lot of players in this game, right? And it's not easy to remember a name like Chill Blast at 100% a minute. so you have to be there within that funnel to go when people are searching for something like gaming PCs or custom built gaming PCs. We spend a lot of money on paid. We spend a lot of money on kind of organic because there is a lot of players in the game. So you've got to be there paid. And there is a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of research before purchase.
Yeah.
We all know the data, right? People spend a lot of time researching on a product before they buy it, especially when you're looking at like a computer that's got thousands of pounds of order value behind it. And so, we really do try and be there at every step. And so a lot of it really, there's no one specific tool, but it's reporting, right? That's kind of number one.
You touched on it there, that attribution piece and being kind of multi-touch in the way that you're looking at it. Do you find that difficult to report back up the line correctly into maybe, and this is not to tar the Tactus board or anything here, so I hope if they're listening, I don't know how you guys do this, but I find that a lot of the challenges for marketers that will come to me or to Extreme Push and talk to it is that ability to go like, right, we've had spend and this is how we're attributing it across our different touch points, whether it's last click, whether it's first click, whether it's word of mouth, whatever it might be. But being able to put that data into a story to then be able to show, look, this is what it's doing to incrementality on the bottom line and how it's helping, or it might not be helping and we've missed this spend. Do you find that is a big challenge for you, like over the course of your career doing this?
Yeah, definitely. It's not so much of a challenge for me now because I don't have to do it, which is quite nice. But definitely back when I did, it was and is a challenge. As I said, like when it comes to ecom and when it comes to like kind of general customer behavior, PC sales is not too dissimilar to like automotive sales, right? Yeah. It's kind of, if you look, we were speaking earlier about how frequently you buy one. Actually, some people change their car more frequently than they do their PC. So, and in that, then those first click, last click, or kind of like spread value kind of attribution models and how that works actually sometimes falls apart because we're not talking a couple of days for that attribution. We're talking 30 to 60 days for some people. So sometimes it really does fall apart. So there's a lot of, and I think a lot of the time this is fine, where it's okay to be to do this by feel, right? It's okay to know that sometimes just a big move in one area is attributed to something that you've done without necessarily knowing it. It's a lot of the time, whilst data is excellent, you need to have the trust from your board or from your shareholders that can go, well, we trust that you know you're on the ground, you're in the weeds, you're fighting the battle, you know that this caused this. If you don't necessarily capture the exact data to prove it, that's big. But exactly the same, in the same breath, the data is all day long super important.
Yeah, and you can find that common sense sometimes goes out of the window when we get so into looking at things and trying to derive messages when it's actually like, you know what, we did this campaign and we've seen an uplift, so that's good. Something has happened along the way here. These things happen. Chill Blast particularly, like the word of mouth thing is really interesting and how cool that gaming group, like sponsorships of teams like Fanatics, I think hugely important for you guys within the community. That's probably something that's very different to an e-tailer that's doing that. Like HP are probably not throwing the kind of type of like custom sponsorship against a team like that, and what that's driving from within the community. So I think, again, a whole completely different revenue stream where you're not talking about paid ads, you're talking about literally being on the ground at an event.
Yeah, and that's, any of our kind of partnerships that we've got at the moment. So the two most prominent ones we've got is Fnatic, like one of the primary players in esports, just in general. We've got Williams, one of the primary players in kind of sim racing esports. Yeah. So both esports related, and a lot of that comes down to our kind of core messaging in the sense that we want to, one of our core messages within the brand is that we help people to achieve their goals, right? That's kind of, that's it. So, no, nobody typically just buys a PC off the back. Like they just don't just go kind of, I'm going to buy a PC. Some people do, but it must be nice. But typically people have a reason for buying it, whether it's they're starting a new business and they need something to run it on, or they're looking to get into illustrating, photography, videography, playing a game, whatever it is. Generally, there is a goal, and so that's essentially what Chill Blast aims to do, and this is where it goes back to kind of finding stories and stuff within your customer to go, oh, you know what, we're gonna talk about this, we're gonna help this person do this, we're gonna help this person do that, we're gonna try to achieve this goal with you, and that again goes back to kind of Fnatic and Williams and going, what can we do for you, right? It's ideally a two-way partnership. As much as we like it that that you put our logo on stuff and that you share socials and things like that, which is all very nice. Actually, we want to help you do what it is you want to do, and likewise, maybe you can help us do some cool stuff as well. And genuinely, in the true sense of the word, doing a partnership, right? And sometimes that is a little bit confusing for these kind of these partnership managers that are like, hang on, so you're not just interested in putting your logo as big as you can on everything we do? And I'm like, not really, no. For the reasons that we spoke about earlier, in terms of the brand is not that recognizable. So that's not where the value is, right? They're just having the word there is not going to do much for people, but actually having the value proposition there, the thing we do, is way more valuable.
Yeah, I think that that'll be the theme of this podcast, in and around the value piece that you're driving there. Talking about value into kind of like your retention flows, and maybe whether you can get into this or not, let me know. But how you're talking about long life cycle products here. How do you guys envisage retention within the business? Like, are you looking at high touch points and frequency to keep people engaged with the brand, or are you kind of very much more based off, right, we've seen that someone's come back on, we know that they're a current customer, and we want to engage them at the right time, in real time or whatever it might be? Like, how driven are you there? And I imagine across this value chain for you guys, things like upgrades, pieces like that, where the core part of the PC is done, but someone's going, oh, cool, I actually am looking at that new gaming mouse and I can see that behavior is happening on our website. Like, are you tracking that?
Yeah. So it's 100% about kind of knowing your customer, right? So we know that 6.5 years or so is when people buy PCs. So that's not great as a business. At some point, we're going to run out of market. So we have to identify new ways of it. That's number one, right? We can do acquisition or we can do retention as much as we want, but if we've got nothing to give them, it's next to useless. So we need to solve that problem first. A good part of that is as you said, going, well, what upgrades can we give you? And this is in part having our systems in place so that so the customer service is empowered to know what we can give you, as well as having the systems in place so that we know when a customer comes to the website, we know who they are, we know what they purchased, we can float certain products up to them, and then the data flow within it. So as you said, if they're looking at a certain mouse or a certain kind of keyboard or whatever it is, we can either go via outreach, so customer service can get in touch, or they can bring it up in the next conversation that they have if it's about something techie, whatever it happens to be. It's almost a kind of somewhere between like account-based management account management or account-based marketing, in that sense, where it's like, oh, we've got the customer is the account, really. And we look at them and go kind of, oh, we can see that you've been looking at mice or something. Are we, do we have anything that you're interested in? Maybe I can help you with that. We can speak to kind of our, somebody that knows more about mice than I do, or whatever it happens to be, and flow it through that way. It's a natural, as you said, it's a natural kind of proposition in that sense. How we do that from a kind of longer point of view is, again, at some point you run out of things, right? Mice, keyboards, etc. So we have to bring more product to market. So I work quite closely with product to go, what are the next things that a customer might be aware of? So then we launched our own range of laptops, right? So once you're bought in on the desktops, you can go, right, well, we've got laptops as well. Maybe you're on the move, maybe you're traveling to work, whatever it happens to be. We've got a range of laptops available if you're interested. The same, but still with the same value proposition. Warranty, customer service, etc. So likewise, all of that comes through with the data, and you just go, oh yeah, like I can see you're looking at laptops, or I can see you're interested in, we've got this system in place where it's not particularly complicated like most. I think Outlook does it now, but we know where we know that a customer. We know who a customer is, but we can also then go via their LinkedIn and things like that and see, if you work in a specific sector, maybe you're traveling a lot, well, laptops, etc., and kind of and work. And so, as I said, a very account-based marketing approach, because we're not dealing with a huge number of customers at the end of the day. We're just dealing with high-value customers.
Yeah, I think that's actually that's really interesting that you've got the capacity to be account-based and like you said, so much more closer maybe to a higher value. Not higher value, but a higher cost model, like an automotive or high end jewelry and stuff like that. You see these different types of approaches that can be done, and then you see really nice big D2C brands that incorporate elements of that ABM marketing at scale, and it works really well because you get treated like a person rather than just a number that's going on there.
That's definitely the next big challenge we face is how do we scale it, right? We know it works, like customers love it, but how do we scale that? Because it's going to be difficult to just have a number of customers equals a number of customer service agents or whatever it is. That's not scalable. So we start looking at AI,
I was about to say tech must be the area that you guys go in and look at, and are you looking at third parties to come in and help with that, or is it a case of, particularly given what your company does, how much of that could potentially be self-built? I think is interesting.
Yeah, so there's a separate thing which I won't get sidetracked on, but yes, I was about to go into a thing which wasn't relevant, but yes, like things like AI and stuff. We do. I think everybody's getting kind of on the AI train of going like, this is amazing, etc. We have to bear in mind that it is just input output, right? It's only as good as what you can give it. We are really lucky to be in a company or just in a sector that just allows huge amounts of data. Like we know kind of obviously we've got the standard kind of navigational data that you're going to get from websites and stuff, but then we know we can do further data analysis just in terms of general e-com, in terms of basket analysis and what that's like, but you can apply that to the computer as though it were a basket, and then start to make assumptions based on what that person is going to do with that PC, and then we can apply those tags to customers and things like that. This is kind of, we're not quite there yet, but that's where we're going to get to, which then allows us kind of in the future to kind of take a lot of the legwork from the kind of the customer service guys in terms of having to have those conversations, because we just innately kind of know it. And then we're always validating that data and getting it. The rabbit hole I was going to go down was in the sense that we've got access to the technology, so we don't actually have to worry about doing it in the cloud, right? We don't have to worry about kind of like finding a service, because we can just build the computers that kind of do the AI, because most of it's open source. So we can have people in that kind of just go, right, we're going to build our own AI model based around doing this, and that is as much fun as it is just to do around the office. It also creates lovely stories that we can then share on social, because that's that's us leading tech.
I think that's such a unique proposition and very different. Potentially differentiates you from high street retailers and other players in the market, I think. And like you're saying, it's just leaning into that story. So it's quite exciting to see. And you talk about stories. I was saying before the call that I'm purchasing a new house, and it's got a room where I know I'm going to have a computer. And like immediately before our call today, I'm looking at Chillblast and going, oh geez, how am I going to get one over to Ireland? So that's the start of the thing, and that'll be 6-7 months of me looking at that to do it. And then who knows, I'll get my end spend, but it won't be off a last click that determines it. So it's such a broader thought process for it. And it sounds like you're well enabled within the business to do that, which is good. Liam, I'm going to go. I want to kind of wrap up as we kind of hit into the 30-40 minute mark today. Where do you see 2023 heading for the business, and what are the big opportunities? And maybe that's for the wider group, or if you want to pick out either Box as the specific brand, or even Chillblast as the brand. Like, what are you guys really focusing and doubling down on? Obviously, given the type of market that we're in at the moment, particularly in the UK and the rest of Europe as well, and probably the rest of the world, quite turbulent. Discretionary spending is probably dropping as interest rates go up and whatnot. like, does that play into the way that you guys start to future-proof against 2023 and your goals as a marketing team?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, it's difficult times, and we see that in kind of basically every metric, right? It's just kind of like, oh well, it's going to be tough. Specifically for the tech sector, we had like a boon, right, over COVID. It was just kind of like, oh, everybody is buying tech, specifically kind of PCs and laptops, which means that we're on the back end of that curve now, and we're seeing that where even given a bad year or kind of economically bad times, where our sales might be, the fact that it was kind of preceded by a year where it was above and beyond, and people were putting money there because they might just be working from home, or they might just have some free time, etc. That then leads to kind of like even worse kind of thing, which is absolutely a challenge. It means we have to reassess on in everything, and just kind of go, right, where is the spend, where is the core, take it back to absolute basics. What is the ROI on kind of each channel? Is it worth keeping? If we can't find ROI within it, is it impacting the brand positively? And then just kind of, you have to be really ruthless and go kind of, oh, we've got to get rid of it, right? So you cut down all of that, cut out as much as you can, so that at the end of it, what you've got is hopefully a still strong marketing kind of mix, whilst not massively impacting kind of bottom line. Moving forward for the year, a lot of it is that brand message. We want to sow those seeds. We want to sow that kind of brand equity where we can at the moment, so that once we kind of come out the back end of this, we can go, oh, excellent, we've got customers that we've given value to, and they want to spend back. So a lot of that is about floating really good deals to customers. We don't necessarily always want to be properly deal driven as a company, like, because it's nobody wants to be kind of like every weekend like kind of 50% off, like that, because you get known for it.
It's just a spiral,
but in the same sense, we want to be known for providing good value where it needs to be. Curated value is probably the best way of saying it. And so that's kind of that, as I said, sowing those seeds of kind of like goodwill, as it were, is kind of, we think, going to be quite powerful as we move into the next coming years, where customers go, hang on, I know where I'm going to spend this already, because I've been thinking about it. As you said, like, you're looking in 7 months' time, you're going, I'm going to buy a PC, and you like to think that maybe during this time, the companies that are helping you out doing that are going to be the ones that you're at least going to consider during that point. It's a big year for brand for us, and I would say that obviously because it's my department, my department. But it's definitely interesting, especially as we start looking into this kind of this world with AI and stuff. We're dabbling a lot in AI in terms of artwork creation and content writing, but it needs to be, as I said, it's only as good as what you give it, right? It's only data, so it needs a human to be alongside it. It's definitely exciting,
Yeah, I think brands that are setting up that value that's not necessarily monetary and driven by discounting or bonusing or whatever it might be, and actually delivering value to their customers, where they go, what, that's what it is. In the long term, that pays off. And I actually think what you said there is I think we'd all be surprised by how many marketing teams aren't doing that regular kind of analysis of their spend to ensure that they're maximizing that, and potentially one of the benefits for teams out of this kind of turbulent time is that maybe that becomes core and part of their processes moving forward, and then have better benefits for it in the long term as well.
Definitely. We, as I said, we came out of a period where it was kind of throw a lot at the wall and see what works, and then you just come back and go, let's reassess and go, what's working? And that is ultimately, you've got to come back to your core of the marketing.
Great. And what about next for you, Liam? Is it going to be, CMO? Is that the next stop, or is it board member or CEO?
Well, who knows, right? My current CEO might not, or my current CMO might not be too pleased. If you're listening, hi Dom, you're right. I'm coming for you. No,
he's coming for you, Dom.
If there is such a role, something like, like brand director, obviously creative director, things like that is always good. But I find that those kind of roles leave the marketing side behind. There's definitely some kind of in the Venn diagram of roles, there's something there in the middle that is for me, because I quite enjoy it. Who knows what's next?
Yeah, that wasn't meant to be a loaded question like he's leaving, because obviously doing an excellent job looking at the brand position that's going for the big major brands for Tactus. But Liam, been awesome picking your brain about plenty of different things today. You really stuck your oar in, is probably the way that we'd say it for the podcast. Appreciate you joining us on Experts in the Room, and we wish you, the Tactus Group, and all of your brands under it the best of luck into 2023.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome.